A university in West Texas, Texas A&M, was going to have a drag show. It was a charity event trying to raise money for the Trevor Project in particular. That unfortunately was canceled earlier this week by the university's president. And already the student organization has leaped into action suing over this. The lawsuit was filed by Spectrum WT, that's the student organization, against President Walter Wendler and other school leaders that alleges that Wendler is, quote, openly defying the Constitution. So here's a little bit from the lawsuit. It says, in a published edict, President Wendler barred a recognized student group, Spectrum WT, from exercising its clear First Amendment right to put on a PG-13 charity drag show at a campus event hall with the aim of raising funds for LGBTQ plus suicide prevention. President Wendler's edict canceling the student group's charity group drag show is textbook viewpoint discrimination. Of course, as a private citizen, President Wendler enjoys the First Amendment right to criticize expression he finds offensive, distasteful, or immoral. But as a public official, he cannot bar Spectrum WT and its members from exercising their First Amendment rights merely because he believes his personal opinions override the Constitution. And so, as we're gonna get to, when we get to his comments, it is clearly him attempting to use his personal opinions and give like sort of a philosophical veneer to justify this banning. But to sort of, I guess, paraphrase some of his views, he says that drag shows, quote, discriminate against womanhood. He compared them to blackface and says there's no such thing as a harmless drag show. So I've heard those same arguments made all very recently in the last year or so from a number of people that have tried to, what's the term for it? It's when you use supposed empathy and compassion as a shield for your hatred. Concern trolling, I think, is the term. It's, oh, I'm not trying to stop the drag show. It's that I'm worried about women being discriminated against. That'll work, right? That makes me seem compassionate. And that's what he's doing here. He's just trying, either he hates drag shows, probably because he's been convinced to by right-wing propaganda, or he's trying to elevate himself on the national stage by being one of the right-wingers seen to be fighting back against these events. River, what do you think?
I mean, I think it's a twofer, John. I mean, why not? Why not get a little star power out of it? I mean, I do think it's very interesting now to conveniently hide your transphobia, which it's not very hidden. You know, transphobia and misogyny are essentially the same thing as are, homophobia and racism and misogyny. They're all wonderful bedfellows. And so when you can't, it's like Spider-Man meme. It's not one versus the other. It's all within. And these students make a great point that you can have whatever personal belief that you want or value, but as a position as a public official, you can't go on some crusade to change these things. It is a First Amendment right to have these performances at public universities. It's not a private university. You can't do that. And I just want to point out two things, which is that we're essentially, and we have been for quite some time, living in like Weimar Germany, where trans and gender nonconforming queer people are the scapegoat of the nation right now.
Everything.
Yeah, that is like what is center stage. I'm not saying that these other things, police brutality, Black Lives Matter, they are all intertwined. But at this current particular moment, we're banning books. And it's convenient that we never talked about the books that were banned. It was almost like Nazis just didn't want people to be literate, which is part of it. But they didn't want people to be literate about queer people. Like that is most of the books that were burned in Nazi Germany was deep, effective research about trans folks specifically, that we would be in a different place as a people right now today had those books not been burned. And so that is what's happening in America, is preventing us and people of color, Black people, indigenous folks, queer people from reading about each other, especially as children, and understanding one another and ourselves through that literature. Yeah. And I just want to point out that this, saying it's PG-13, I don't think we need to be making those sort of considerations, because it reminds me of, I don't remember whether it was a congressman or a senator who said, I can't define porn, I just know it when I see it, which is like this funny little thing. But when you really consider it, that means that person gets to decide what porn is and is not. And that's not what our country needs to be, like it has been that, is that certain elected and elevated officials get to decide what is and what isn't. And I think we're at this point right now where I actually think drag is dangerous. I think it affects people, but it is dangerous to the status quo. It is dangerous to the patriarchal, hierarchical, cis-normative society that is being that is oppressing all of us every day, even people who fit within that statement. You know, it is dangerous to the status quo. It's not dangerous to children.
I agree. And as many people are pointing out, there are cis women who perform in drag shows.
That's right.
And I only point that out because clearly President Wendler is so worried about discriminating against cis women that, oh my God, he accidentally did it. Now he's gonna have to backtrack because he seriously cares about them. In the same way that Republicans care about women's sports in high school and college as well. They seriously think about this.
They care about the quality of women's sports. And they also probably at the same time don't understand why they can't just comment on a lady's sweater every now and then. These people are full of it. They are absolutely full of it, and whatever is convenient and whatever fits their narrative they're gonna use. People don't actually, I mean, the support of women's sports is almost, in terms of monetarily, materially, is almost non-existent in this country until there is a trans woman who wants to play. And then all of a sudden we have to worry about, you know, the sanctity of women's sports. And women's sports has kept women from competition with men for years. And we could be doing that. We could all just be playing sports together. And ultimately we're talking about kids and like kids who just want to be in community with each other and play sports with their friends, you know, like that's what this event is for people to be in community with each other, which I would circle back to our first story is the breaking up of community. And I don't just mean the LGBT community, I literally mean your neighbors, the people that you live with, that you shop for your groceries with, that you drive with. We are so broken apart and afraid of each other, and having community with each other is actually what prevents this violence. Because if you know someone, it's a lot harder to be cruel and violent to them.
Yeah, I think that's why so much of Fox News and right-wing media is designed to make you hate everyone who's not specifically like you along a bunch of demographic spectrums. Yeah, no, a great commentary. I agree about community. Definitely, yeah. Get the hell out of here. You know what you could do if you want to support women's sports? Go to them. How about that? How many of these right wingers? So I have season tickets to Angel City Football Club. I don't feel like I see a lot of conservative men. I'm not saying they're not, but it doesn't look like it's filled up with right-wing conservative men who suddenly care about women's sports a ton. Anyway, that's one way to support it. And to Wendler talking about it being the same as blackface, get all of the way the hell out of here. There have been a lot of dumb arguments that we've had to respond to. I'm not gonna give that any more respect than I already have by bringing it up.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.